Hola mis amigas! Welcome to release week! I'm so excited, it's finally here. My novel is going out into the world, free. The first book in Hope on the High Seas is going to officially be released on March 11th, so if you haven't already, make sure to head over to Goodreads and add it to your TBR, and don't forget on March 11th, if you did not participate in my pre-order, to head over and purchase your copy. It's going to be available for both paperback and also as an ebook, depending on which one you prefer. So I thought a fun way to start off release week for my novel would be to tell you about the story behind my novel, why I wrote it, when I started writing it, what inspired me to start writing it in the first place, as well as maybe just give you a little bit background on what I had been writing before this time. So I have been writing for my entire life, ever since I could put words to paper. I've been coming up with stories, living out in my head all these fun adventures, sometimes even acting them out. So storytelling has always been a very important part of who I am, how I express myself, and just something that I enjoy doing. So I've been, like I said, writing stories for years and years, and it wasn't until I got to around the age of 12 that my stories really started to have some coherence. I won't give you like the entire rundown of like all of my writing journey because I think that would actually be a really fun video. In fact, last year I had thought my book would be coming out that year in March. Now that didn't end up happening, and I'm really grateful that I didn't push for it happening because having that extra year really ended up helping. But back then I actually filmed a video on my writing journey, and I think it might be fun to go back and edit that video and actually post that video. I would add like an intro and outro of me now, maybe adding a few things. But if that sounds like something that you would want to see, like old footage of me telling you about my writing journey, let me know down in the comments. I don't generally go back and find old footage of me that I never published and actually edit it and upload it. I had a few videos like that that I created, I kind of practiced with, but then I didn't end up doing anything with. But if that particular one sounds like something that you would be interested in seeing, do let me know down in the comments because I think that could actually be a lot of fun. So anyway, just a brief summary. I started writing books that had more of a plot, like short stories and stuff like that, around the age of 12. And then when I got to the age of, I want to say it was right around my 15th birthday, I wrote my first attempt at a novel. It was short. It wasn't really a novel, but it had more of the structure of a novel, and that was a big turning point. After that, I wasn't sure what my next project was going to be, but something came along that inspired me and sent me on such a fun imaginary adventure that ended up creating the next big project that I would write, which ended up creating the novel that I am now publishing. So in 2017, which would have been shortly after I had written that first attempt at a novel, I had some inspiration. And that inspiration came in the form of, there was this amazing musical production of the story of Jonah that I had seen before, but I was able to watch it again. And just the story was epic and amazing. I love biblical musical theater. I adore it. It like changed my life. I now from time to time write my own scripts and musical plays just for fun. And I remember I was just so in love with the parts where there was the sailors, because you know in the story of Jonah there was the sailors, you know, they try to take Jonah to Tarshish. Storm comes because you can't run from God, and you know then the sailors place their faith in God, and that's, you know, really awesome and cool. And plus it was epic, you know, there were special effects and lightning and there was music, and they had this sea shanty type thing that they sang while they were setting off to sea. It was just wanderlust people. It was so amazing and I loved it. I just loved it. I learned all the songs. I could still sing all the songs, and especially that part with the sailors was one of my favorite parts. I've always loved adventure. I've always loved adventure, and for whatever reason I feel like I've always kind of also loved the sea in one way or another, whether that was the fact that I loved dolphins or whatever when I was younger. I've always loved the sea. I don't know why, it seems like in some way or another I've always loved something that is in connection with the sea, like sailing or dolphins or whatever. So it just clicked. And I remember I would like picture myself as like a servant girl on board the ship, and I was like, you know, just this selfless servant girl that would like, you know, be kind to everyone. And then, you know, I imagined myself in my own adventure, and, you know, then the sailors would like notice that and ask me about my faith and whatever, and just those fun imaginary adventures. I think I even dreamed a couple of times, like as if it was like continuing this imaginary adventure. I have a huge imagination. I don't do as much of that anymore. I wish I did, because my mind's so full of so much other stuff now, but it was a lot of fun. And eventually the idea of servant girl on board a ship being selfless, serving her masters, and they ask her about her faith is basically the gist of the idea that was to be free. So the original title of the book was I Am Free, but I decided that free was just a little bit catchier. And originally I did not picture it as a series, but later I kind of had some other ideas and it seemed like it might make a good series. So not that long ago I came up with the series title of Hope on the High Seas. Hope on the High Seas. Does that just not sound like, you know, adventure, and yet at the same time we're going to have some solid Christian themes in this. It's going to be really uplifting and really adventurous and wonderlust. So whenever I actually first kind of was working on ideas for free, of course, one of the first things that I generally always do, even to this day, is I drew illustrations of the characters and I was coming up with their costumes. And at this time in the story, I actually did not yet know what time period I wanted to set this in, and that later created some problems because whenever I went to edit it, I had to tweak some things to fit the time period. But originally I pictured them, the characters, kind of with their outfits and stuff resembling more the characters from the musical of the story of Jonah that I loved so much. So just to avoid any confusion, Free is not in any way resembling the story of Jonah, but the idea of like, you know, this biblical story with adventure on the high seas, and then you have like a nice biblical message, that was more what inspired Free from the story of Jonah. So don't be confused, it's not an allegory or anything like that. Just the concept of, you know, those aspects of the story of Jonah kind of really inspired me. And originally, I also actually envisioned Ruth as this, like, tough tomboy character, like, which is funny because she ended up not being that kind of a character at all. She's, you know, she's strong. I don't want to give anything away from the story of why she has to be strong, but she's strong. But at the same time, she's not a tomboy. She's not sassy either. She ended up being a very different, like, not that kind of female character. She ended up being very much like me, which made her easier to write, but it's funny because, like, I set out to write this tomboy character who's, you know, adventurous and spirited, and not that she's not adventurous and spirited. I'm thinking of a very specific chapter right now. But anyway, she ended up being just like me, and I'm, like, you know, like I said, I'm adventurous and spirited, but I'm not a tomboy. You can be strong and adventurous and spirited without being, like, the not like other girls type of trope. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But anyway, that was fun. Some of the other characters I was creating, they kind of, I don't even remember how they created themselves. Like, I don't instantly recall like the steps that led to me designing the story, but I basically needed like the captain, and I needed a sort of person to resemble an antagonist. There isn't like a true human antagonist in this series, or definitely not in this series, but like in the book there's not like a true human antagonist. There is an antagonist, but like the main conflict from my perspective is more like the story itself, like the situations and things like that. But I needed the captain, and I needed what ended up becoming the first mate. So there was those characters. And from there, I just kind of worked the story how I wanted it to pan out. I knew how I wanted it to end. I did a sort of outline. I still have it in this very, very, very large binder. And after that, I read it to my mom, I think, and then kind of we ended up in the editing phase, and there was a lot of stuff going on with that. There was a lot of editing, that had to happen, and I think I will actually save that for a different video. I think I will give you guys a separate video later in the week specifically on how I self-edited my novel. And no, I did not get a professional editor. I ended up doing it by self-editing, but I did not edit it entirely myself, and I will talk a little bit more about that later in the week. And I think that for now kind of concludes the gist of what inspired me to write Free. Of course, you know, something else that I didn't really mention that always inspires me is just having a strong Christian story that's really going to encourage and inspire my reader. I pictured my reader at the time as teenage girls, but I think that there will be all sorts of people that have read this book. I've had different people that read this book. Most of the people who have read this book are adults. They still really enjoyed the story. Not all of them were women. I also had, you know, like my brother and a couple of other people read the story that were guys, and they also enjoyed it. They thought it was a good and, you know, not just uplifting but also entertaining story, and so that was cool. But yeah, it's been a so crazy journey to go from that, you know, original idea to the finished novel, and I'm going to talk about that more later this week. So stay tuned. If you are new here, welcome. I'm Karina, and I enjoy writing stories and honestly doing lots of different things that tell a story, whether that be costuming. I'm getting historical costuming. Most of what I do on this channel is me talking about, you know, writing novels. I vlog writing novels, things like that. But if you enjoy storytelling in various forms, and you also enjoy some encouragement in your faith as you kind of explore different methods of storytelling, welcome to my channel, and I think you're really gonna love it here. I love sharing this community with you guys, and we are gonna write stories by God's grace that are gonna make this world a better place. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and welcome to release week. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to share my story with you guys. You guys have been so supportive and so amazing, and I look forward so much to seeing you guys in the coming days because it's release week. Yay! I will be posting a video every single day this week, Lord willing, and so I hope that you don't miss a single one, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye!